Hi, and welcome to Marketing Optimization with Alex Designs. I'm your host, Alex Harris, and today we're chatting with Greg Hickman. How you doing, Greg?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, I've been listening to Mobile Mixed for a while now, and I'm really excited to bring on your show because a lot of my audience really likes to stay on the cutting edge, and it is hard to find people who really just focus on the mobile aspect of it, whether it's SMS, responsive design, or just creating mobile in general.
Yeah.
So what would you say some of the top tips when you really wanted to set up your framework for your mobile aspects?
Yeah. So, I mean, before any of the tactical stuff, I think understanding obviously strategy is important. That's the biggest mistake most people make when it comes to mobile is that they think they need to make this like separate strategy for mobile. And, you know, depending on what your business is, you should look at your business, review the business objectives and the goals and what your marketing strategy currently is and see where mobile aligns with that and how it can then help you better reach those goals. So usually it's around leads or like engagement or something like that, where the engagement is driving sales or something. So like starting from that point and then see how mobile can affect that is always the best place to start versus just saying, oh, I'm going to build an app.
Well, that's great because that's what I want to jump right into. Having the goal in mind and kind of getting mobile first from there, and then kind of filling in the gaps with the content. I think some of the top conversions that you can really focus on in the mobile space would be to get people to call through maybe through geolocation, and then really finding the nearest location for where you want to do, and then probably filling out a form as well.
Yep, definitely. I would add. I think that's rapidly changing though. So like. If anyone's listening and their business is localized or, you know, those are definitely key if your business is local. But, you know, for online marketers too, with how much, you know, podcasting, social media, all of that stuff, you know, YouTube, all these different platforms are already mobile, like almost majority mobile. That means they're coming to your site anyway from already listening to your content somewhere else or coming from your email or what have you. So if your emails are intended to be that sales email, like, hey, take action now or register for a webinar, something like that, like having mobile optimized landing pages for registrations, you know, the opt-in bribes, all of those things, because now more than ever with all of that stuff, again, being predominantly mobile, the first impression that you make could actually be from a mobile phone. I mean, a lot of us podcasters, you know, we podcast because it gets us in front of a new audience. I can tell you that most of my audience finds out about me first through my podcast. So when I'm on my podcast and I say, hey, visit the show notes at mobilemix.com/whatever, or opt in to get my free toolkit at the URL, the odds of them going from there from a mobile phone is really high. So, you know, they're not looking to call me, you know, they're not looking to get a map to me because obviously that there's a map to the internet, like my destination here. But like, you know, they'll be looking to get that freebie giveaway that, you know, I just mentioned on the podcast or in a video. So I think landing pages are super critical for any, at least online business.
I love that you talked about that because that's what I want to talk about next. It's been crazy how many mobile landing pages people have been asking me to do. And people think just because it's smaller, it's actually easier. Sometimes it actually could be a little bit more difficult to figure out how to get the mobile experience into all the different aspects of it. Because you're going whatever 320, 340, all the way to 800 nowadays and trying to really fit all that stuff in there. What would you say to a web designer or developer when they're creating their mobile web landing pages?
I would say key call to action ideally is above the fold. And then I would also say, design for mobile, which that's part of it, but any sort of interaction where the user needs to use their hand, make sure that the fields and buttons are big enough that they can click or tap rather with their hand, because as you obviously just kind of alluded to, the screens are smaller. It's a lot more difficult to deal with that. So you need to understand the mobile user, and the mobile user doesn't have a very intricate mouse pointer. They're using their pointer finger or their thumb or whatever other body part that they're using to tap on their screen. So they need to be much larger buttons. So I would think, full width buttons, full width fields, Don't try to do like first name, last name, like next to each other, like make them, on top of each other. There's little things like that make going through that process easier.
Yeah, definitely simplifying those forms, removing as many fields as possible, keeping it short, getting that button above the fold. Also, to add, if you do have the phone number, make sure that it's HTML or something so it's actually clickable so people can actually click that lead.
Yeah, and one more actually, depending on your business, if you're delivering like hard goods, like if you're shipping products, like physical products, or if you need someone to enter their mobile number or their zip code, when you're on a mobile device, because the form can detect if that user, the site can detect if that user is on a mobile phone. So when they enter the zip code field, you can choose to serve up the numeric keypad instead of the QWERTY keypad, which makes typing numbers a whole lot easier, because then I don't need to click the button that switches over to numbers, which are then are across. You could just serve up the numeric keypad like you would be dialing a phone number. So that makes it a lot easier to type in any sort of number-based field. So that makes it easier for someone to navigate.
Yeah, totally. And we're getting a little bit technical here, but you can find out all about this stuff on Greg's podcast. But when you're doing HTML, there's certain tags that you add to the HTML to ensure that it shows like a URL field or an email field, and then that the keyboard switches to what he's talking about. So now let's talk about content. It's hard to really, especially with responsive, to fit all that stuff in there. How do you go about, when you're doing your consulting for your clients, to organize that content in the right way so they get a great experience like they would on the desktop?
Yeah, so there's a few things. I mean, one, starting, if you have the luxury of starting the design from mobile first, that's kind of where the mobile first concept came from, really. I mean, it's just designing and think mobile first, because if you can design and accomplish all of your goals on a smaller screen, having more real estate shouldn't be a problem. So by focusing on that first, then it forces you to identify what are the key things that someone needs from me as a business or a content creator, and what's that priority? Is my priority for them to get this email newsletter, to opt into this thing? Is it to get to this blog post? Is it to get to my coaching page, or what have you? So prioritizing, what the user is going to be trying to accomplish is going to be the number one driver in which content gets prioritized first. How does the content, and should it respond when it gets down from, gets from a desktop to a tablet to, mobile? And obviously understanding your own customer. Like when someone comes to your business's site, what do they want to accomplish? Like, is that going to be easy? Make it as easy as possible. And then I would say, then worry about your own needs. So kind of recapping, just prioritize what you want the user to do, and then design to solve that problem on a mobile phone first. Yeah,
and there has been a lot of new tools to really use to figure out what is actually working on mobile or not. Are you using any specific mobile analytics for your clients, or testing or tracking tools to figure out what works best?
The biggest things outside of just regular Google Analytics is heat maps. So something like crazyegg.com offers mobile heat maps, which really shows you where the mobile user is trying to tap. There's definitely instances where, people add graphics to their site that aren't actually a link to somewhere, and you see a lot of people tapping them, which is obviously confusing. So as a user, if I'm tapping this thing and nothing's happening, the likelihood of me just leaving because I'm frustrated increases. So, you obviously don't want to do that. So you can see not only where people are tapping, which could help optimize your navigation, but it also helps you see and kind of further validate from analytics, like which content are they trying to get to? Because, you might have had like a more button, and that more button is tapped the most because you have something in that more button that they're trying to get to that maybe shouldn't be, behind that more button. So I think just heat maps and then analytics, you should be able to get most of the way.
Yeah, definitely. Now, with anything on the web, you want it to really load quickly, and I think people get caught in the display none, phase of just hiding everything in order to kind of fit all that content in there. What would be some good ways for you kind of to set up your pages to ensure that everything kind of loads in the right way and increases the time?
Yeah. So, I mean, the main one is just images. So the two of the big things when it comes to performance are just image sizes. So like, what can you do to make sure that the images are optimizing or the images are responsive? There are some tools out there that help optimize your images to make them more mobile friendly. And then the second one is redirects, not redirects, like server calls. So like if there's a lot of data and content on your site and they're coming from different places and your site is using multiple server calls just to get that piece of content, it's going to slow down your site. So optimizing that for as little or as few server calls as possible will help speed your site up too.
Yeah, definitely. And we've definitely seen a shift, I think, especially in conversion space. When I'm doing, my clients come to me and they want to improve their conversions on mobile. I'm like, it's actually hard to make an e-commerce site actually convert on mobile. More than likely, they're going to be using an iPad. And you see those numbers go up at 5, 6 o'clock at night, whatever it is. People using their iPad more at those times of day.
Yeah.
Have you reached the experience where people want a separate experience from mobile to iPad to desktop?
Yeah, in some cases. So, I mean, coming from my previous experience, I was at Cabela's, which is a huge retailer, and we actually optimized the checkout flow on mobile, and it totally changed the game when it came to conversion. So I'll tell you two stories real fast. First, I want to touch on the iPad part. So on my podcast, I interviewed the head of mobile for Brookstone.
Oh,
and they were talking about how they differentiate tablet from desktop to tablet to mobile. And they noticed, kind of like you were saying, that they noticed a lot of people were accessing their site from tablet in the evening hours, 8 to 10 p.m., whereas the mobile site was more during the day. But they noticed one thing in particular, that transactions from the iPad were mainly for two product categories: iPad accessories and pillows. So what they did was, on the iPad site, they created almost like a sub promotional banner right below the navigation that highlighted iPad accessories and like the sleeping accessories, which were pillows. And they saw the transactions for those things skyrocket even more. So that's basically just saying, look, if people are trying to buy only two products from your tablet site between these hours, like, why not make it easier for them to access those products and check out faster? So they did that. And if you looked at their desktop site or their mobile site, you wouldn't see anything about like highlighting iPad accessories or pillows. So just like understanding the behaviors based on device. And then Cabela's, there was a lot of things going wrong there, but what helped increase the performance was that when you applied a promotional code, it didn't immediately show what the end result price was going to be until you entered your credit card information. So you didn't actually know what your total charge was until after you entered your payment credentials, which made people like hesitate, like, well, I don't know exactly what the shipping cost is going to be. I don't know tax. And I'm not sure if this promo code actually deducted the percentage that it was supposed to, and they would abandon the experience. So just showing that in real time totally changed the conversion.
Yeah. Well, I find it really interesting, the things that you touched upon, because the web is moving more personalized. It doesn't matter what device you're using. Being able to personalize the experience that you're on, whether showing the ad at the right time, this stuff really isn't that difficult. It just takes a little bit of time and effort. Would you say?
Yeah, and definitely. I mean, technology too is huge. I mean, like Cabela's, like, we knew so much about our customers, but we couldn't access any of that data in real time. So like, to optimize when they're standing in the store based on who they are, we couldn't do that because we weren't able to connect two to like the back end of the app to the CRM because the APIs weren't available yet. So I think we're still getting there, like overall. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely everyone wants to be more personalized. I mean, if everyone could be talking one-to-one, conversion will naturally go up because I can relate to you and I can relate to the person over there in a way that it resonates with each of you, and I'm not saying the same thing. And I think mobile is definitely a catalyst for that. But a lot of the back end infrastructure, at least for big brands, isn't necessarily there yet, which leads me to say that, it's going to be even longer before a small business can really afford something that's going to like let them have this one-to-one communication, with every single one of their customers in real time.
Yeah, you made some really great points there, because if you are a small business and you're selling whatever kind of widgets there is, and you don't have the right experience, and it may be something someone actually wants, they're more likely probably just to go over to Amazon and click on that one click to actually purchase it. So you're probably leaving a lot of money on the table if you're not creating this personalized experience.
Yeah, and I think everyone's looking for a tool at the same time. Like, I mean, there is no one tool that does this yet. Like, I mean, Cabela's would pay for it if it existed, but there's no one that's doing all of this stuff. Like, there's no one-stop shop for like customized CRM, personalization, and communication, like, which means all of these different tools need to talk together, and they don't all talk together yet. So there's always, as of right now, there's going to be gaps. But from like a small business perspective, like, you need to ask, what does personalization mean to you? Because as a small business owner, you're probably never going to get to the point where like Cabela's is going to get to, where, a black card customer, which is like a 5-star customer, walks in the door and all of the staff members are notified instantaneously. Like, that's right around the corner. Whereas a small business, like, that's most likely not going to happen for a little while, especially for the money that they have to spend. So like, what's personalization for you? It's probably more like segmentation, and how small can you segment that is going to get you as close as you can to personalization. And that might be using Excel spreadsheets, but that is still going to make you more effective.
Yeah. And I mentioned that because I know that a lot of my audience are optimizers. They're trying to improve conversions, and this is a niche that's just wide open for you to create opportunities. If you need to get more clients, find people who are spending a lot of money on mobile, and then go after them and see how you can improve their conversions on their ads, on their landing pages, and their e-commerce experiences.
Yeah, totally.
So let's switch gears. You are now releasing a great new podcast, as you've now gone from corporate to full-time as a solopreneur. Let's tell everybody about the new podcast, Leaving Corporate.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. I mean, I had a lot of people through Mobile Mixed that were following me purely from my story of how I built Mobile Mixed and was able to leave my corporate job. And I know a lot of people that just quit cold turkey, a lot of people that had a lot of money in savings, and a lot of people were just asking like how I was able to do it. And I wanted a place to share the story of my journey of, okay, I'm finally taking Mobile Mixed full time. I want to document this in some way. And that's what my personal site, greghickman.me, has been all about. And through that, I realized that I've been talking a lot about how I was able to leave corporate, and that's the people that were kind of connecting to me. So I decided to go out and interview other people that were able to and successful in leaving their corporate job on their own terms. Like, sometimes people get fired, but sometimes people have a plan, and that's either maybe they have clients on the side where they're generating like a couple $1,000s a month, and then that is what allows them to leave, or they save a bunch of money and they have like $100,000 saved and then they leave. So I was just really interested in how people got to even starting the entrepreneurial journey, because like, some people are like, oh, Greg, like you must be like killing it right now. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm doing a lot better than I was previously, but I also sold my house, and I have a safety net of money that I can tap into if I have a bad month, which for me made it easy mentally to take that leap. So, but a lot of people don't know that, a lot of people don't know that story, and the same stories apply to other people. I mean, I just interviewed Amy Porterfield, and she had 2 consulting clients that were paying her on a monthly basis that were generating good money. And she had a couple contracts in the pipeline for when she was about to leave. So, I mean, like, it wasn't like she just left her job and then had to like scrap for money. She had put stuff in place beforehand. So I want to show people through interview and through my own stories and products, how to start putting a plan in place, build a platform, create an audience that is going to tell you what they want you to create. And there's been some great stories so far. 5 episodes are live on SoundCloud, and by the time this is published, should be live on iTunes. So check it out, Leaving Corporate, but it's at greghickman.me.
Yeah, and I love the branding. I love the Superman opening up his shirt, because it really is relieving. I mean, I know I have a story about that as well, and it is scary. You know, people ask me all the time, how did you do it? How'd you go from going corporate? They actually had to kick me out. I was milking it for as long as I possibly could.
There you go. That's a way, though. That's a path.
Well, yeah, because you know, when you're at a company for so long and you are making more than people assume that you should be, they make your jobs a lot worse than they should. And but you have to take advantage of that, and I commend you for putting that together, because a lot of people do ask me how I did it as well. So it's a really great episode.
We're gonna have you on the show, and you can tell everybody.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's leaving corporate. It was really, because a lot of people who listen to podcasts, they have the dream of having that lifestyle that they always want, you know, creating an office, you know, having, you know, starting a podcast, choosing the clients that you want, and then realizing that you can help other people too. And that's what this whole podcasting network is all about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's been I mean, it's only been like 4.5 months in for me full time. And I've never been happier. And yeah, there's challenges. There's always gonna be challenges. Sometimes I get down on myself. Sometimes I'm still scared, but that's always gonna happen. And, you know, like the ways that these entrepreneurs share that they manage the risk by either making sacrifices, you know, spending less time with friends and, you know, working more on their business on the side in the mornings, or, you know, staying up an hour later and waking up an hour earlier. Like, people made sacrifices. And, you know, I talk to a lot of people that just think that like, oh, like I just started my blog and, you know, I'm not making any money yet. I'm like, well, how long has your blog been live? They're like, you know, 2 weeks. I'm like, well, you don't even traffic. Like, you have traffic yet? Like, does anyone even know this blog exists? And I think a lot of people just think it happens so quickly. And, you know, I was building Mobile Mix for almost 2 years before I was able to get that to a point where I was able to leave. So I just wanted to share those stories, because I felt like, you know, I even got caught up aspiring to be like the Pat Flynn's, and, you know, he's been doing this for like 8 years, you know, and like me, I'm like 2 years into it, and I'm comparing myself to someone who's at 10 years when I should be comparing myself to Pat Flynn at 2 years, but nobody does that. So kind of, I'm hoping that these stories kind of lighten that, or add light to this kind of topic.
Yeah, absolutely, because there is a lot of uncertainty on anything. And as you become more of an entrepreneur, starting a business, bootstrapping, creating a runway, everything is new going forward, and everything is basically scary. You're not sure what the runway is ahead. And if you're if you don't connect with other people, join a mastermind group, partner, network, go to conferences, if you don't talk to other people or listen to stories like yours, then you're just going to be doing it by yourself, and there's no reason to do that.
Well, and actually, not like I don't feel like I'm forcing this, but I really do see a translation with like taking that risk, taking that leap into optimization too, because like if you don't start testing these different things, like how are you going to know which one works better than the other?
Absolutely.
And yeah, you might make one change thinking it's going to work, and you might lose a lot of money. But if you're on top of it and you're following it, like you'd see that it wasn't working and you'd quickly change back. And then you learned a lesson and you're like, okay, I don't need to do that anymore, but you learned. And like, you have to keep taking these risks. Like if it's changing the color of a button, if it's moving a button, if it's less copy, if it's no copy and it's a video, like, yes, people are going to maybe have a problem with it when they see it, but it's going to be a small amount of people and you're going to get through it. And at the end, you'll hopefully be better for it. So
Yep. That, and you hit the nail on the head right there. Definitely, lifestyle optimization is all about this. It's figuring out, what people have done already, and modeling successful people so you don't go down that same path. You're going to fail still, but you try not to make the same mistake twice. Just continue to iterate and don't make the mistake for too long. Pivot quickly.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at everyone out there that's kind of selling online training and stuff, at the end of the day, I mean, they're not only selling the vision, the end result, that lifestyle, but they're selling speed, they're selling convenience, right? Like all these people have learned so much by trying to do what they've done that now they can share it to other people and tell them, hey, don't do this because that's not a good idea. You should do this. And like it helps everyone else get to the end goal faster. And most of these people come from a place of abundance where it's like, hey, there's enough room out here for everybody. There's plenty of people out here in the world that need help. So let's all do it together. And I'm going to help you get there faster so that you can help the next person.
Yep. The ability to go further faster is just key. And it's all based on that feedback loop. The ability to put stuff out there, iterate, and make changes quickly so you don't spend a lot of time and waste a lot of money for sure.
Absolutely, man.
Well, awesome. Let's close by telling people how they can find out more about the podcast and you as well.
Yeah, so the mobile stuff is at Mobile Mixed. That's mixed.com. And I'm Greg at Mobile Mixed if anyone needs to email me. And then leaving corporate, everything about that whole brand is at greghickman.me.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Greg.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching the Marketing Optimization Podcast with Alex Designs. Please remember to subscribe to all of the videos in my YouTube channel. Thank you.